Hi, I'm Rachel Becker, and I'm going to draw my life. On August 7th, 1990, a cool guy named Jay, who grew up in Boston, graduated from Syracuse, loves mountain biking and the band Fish, went on a blind date with the most amazing woman in the world, who grew up in Marlboro, graduated from Ithaca, and her name was Jen. They fell in love, and 3 years later, they got married. 3 years and 2 days later, they had Evan, and then they had me. Initially, I was supposed to be named Jordan, but last minute I became Rachel. This isn't at all what my house looks like, but I grew up and have lived in Middletown my whole life, and I can't stand when people say that Middletown is boring. As babies, Evan and I were really happy and apparently really well behaved in restaurants. We were also very accident prone because when I was 2 years old, I threw myself out of my crib, broke my arm, and had to wear a bright orange cast for like 3 months. When I was 3 years old, the doctors discovered that I had a hole in my heart and I had to go in for open heart surgery. When I was in the hospital, I craved spaghetti and iced coffee, and now I have a big scar down my chest that I used to be self conscious about, but I've gotten over it. That same year, my parents decided to dress Evan and I up as a frog and a rabbit for Halloween, and I've had the nickname Rachy Rabbit ever since. I've been lucky enough to know my grandparents my whole life. Me Mom Beepa live in Red Bank, and me Mom Papa lived in Massachusetts but then moved to Lakewood when I was about 7 years old. Before my me Mom Papa moved to Lakewood, we used to take long road trips to Massachusetts to visit them, and on the way we would stop at a Starbucks, and that began my coffee obsession. We also would stay with our cousins Claudia and Owen. Claudia is 3 years older than us, and Owen is 4 years older than us, and Owen is like 6'5". He's really super tall. Growing up, I was also lucky enough to know three of my great grandparents. There was Gigi, GGP, and Papa Mac. Papa Mac lived in Florida, and he actually lived to be 100 years old, and when I was in 5th grade, we went down to visit and celebrate with him. And one time at a family party, Gigi picked up a huge wad of wasabi thinking it was sushi, put it in her mouth, and almost started choking because it was so spicy. When I was 4, my parents tried to get me into dance with my cousin Samantha and my friends Nikki and Alex. They loved it, but I spent every day hating life and I cried my entire recital because I hated what I had to wear. I started going to River Plaza Elementary School when I was in 1st grade. I loved that school and the teachers, and I made most of my friends by bringing in the bread that I got from Outback and sharing it between everyone. Growing up, I was a huge tomboy. I would wear boy clothes, and one day I found this old Syracuse hat, and I would wear it backwards wherever I went, and I wouldn't go in public without it. I loved being a tomboy, and I think it made me the person I am today, and I don't regret a single day of it. I started playing sports as soon as I could walk. I played softball and I played basketball, even though I can't really draw basketball, and I played soccer and I also can't draw a soccer ball. I even loved trampoline and gymnastics, and I went through a big phase of thinking I could twirl the baton, which I kind of stink at. One of my favorite memories growing up was sitting in Evan's room and listening to this one Green Day song and thinking it was the best song ever, and I still think that song is great. In 3rd grade, we finally convinced my parents to get cats for us. We had Summer and Stash had a little black spot above his nose, which is why we called him Stash. It was short for mustache. When my dad was playing football one day, he tore his Achilles tendon, and he had to go on crutches, and the cats would trip him down the stairs, so we had to get rid of them. Also in 3rd grade, I joined my first travel soccer team called the Middletown Patriots, and that's a terribly drawn soccer ball. I ended up playing on that team for 8 long years. That same year, my parents decided they wanted to look for a vacation home in the Poconos. We found our house and we fell in love with it the first time we saw it. It's a flipped house, so the kitchen is upstairs and the rooms are downstairs. All we do in Pennsylvania is sleep, eat, and watch TV, and even though it's pretty hicky up there, Pennsylvania is my favorite place in the world. In the summer going into 4th grade, when Evan and I were playing in my pool one day, I decided for some reason to throw a torpedo pool toy at his head, and I split his eyebrow open, and he had to go to the hospital because he was bleeding everywhere, and he ended up getting 8 stitches, and my parents were so mad at me, and he has not forgiven me for that. A few weeks later, Evan and I went away to sleepaway camps. I went to New Hampshire for 7 weeks, and Evan went to Maine for 7 weeks, and we were apart and kind of far, and it was kind of a bummer. When I was at New Hampshire at camp, the girls there didn't really understand the whole tomboy thing, and they made fun of me, and it wasn't really cool, but I don't know, what can you do? Almost a year later, at our 5th grade dinner dance, I decided that I wanted to dress up like a girl for the first time, and all my guy friends at River Plaza were really surprised and they complimented me, and I got really embarrassed by them saying that I actually looked girly for once. That same summer, I went and saw Transformers, and I cried my eyes out because I hated that movie, and it scared the hell out of me, and I forever will hate Transformers because of it. In sixth grade, on the first day of school, I met my best friend Casey because we were in the same French class and we had the exact same green and purple notebook covers, and we've been best friends ever since. Also, in sixth grade, I wanted to learn how to juggle, so with the help of YouTube, I taught myself how to juggle in only a week. Along with juggling, I started playing travel basketball when I was in sixth grade because Evan was on a team and I was jealous of him. I joined the Middletown Wildcats and I made friends with people who I'm still friendly with today. And my nickname on the team was Shorty because I was actually one of the smallest girls on the team, which is different now. In seventh grade, I kind of stopped being a tomboy and I started to dress a little bit more girly, but I went through a huge phase of wearing neon colored clothes everywhere, and that I definitely started to regret. Also, in seventh grade, I got braces, which I used to decorate based on whatever holiday was coming up. I also joined the soccer team, basketball team, and softball team, and we went undefeated for soccer and softball, but we definitely lost a few games in basketball. During spring break that year, we went to the Cayman Islands to go snorkeling and scuba diving. And while we were snorkeling and scuba diving, the instructor told us that the likelihood of seeing a poisonous moray eel was very low. But of course, we did see one, and of course, I panicked, and the eel swam right between my legs and my parents' legs and Evan's legs because it was coming near me because I was moving so much. A few months after spring break, my little cousin Maddie was born, and then 2 years later, my little ginger cousin Danny was born, and he has the reddest hair I've ever seen on anyone. Eighth grade year went by so quickly, and it was my favorite year that I ever spent at Thompson. That year, I got my Mac and I used iMovie for the first time, and I fell in love with editing and realized that I want to go into communications when I got older. During the summer before ninth grade started, Evan and I were throwing grapes at each other one night, and Evan threw a grape that hit my mom straight in the eye, and we thought that she went blind, but she went to the doctor and she wasn't blind, which was obviously a good thing, but it was one of my least favorite memories. In September 2010, I started my career at High School South. On October 23rd, when I was a freshman, I got my braces off, and I was so excited about that. I smiled nonstop because I was just excited to not have braces anymore. I was also approached by the varsity high school basketball coach, who was Mr. Brennan, that he wanted me to join the varsity team, and I was so nervous. I didn't even know what to say, but I was so excited that he wanted me to be on varsity. Also, freshman year, I went to my first Sweet 16, and I was asked by a senior to dance, which I thought was really important because I was just a little freshman. And even though I didn't dance with him, I bragged to all my friends that I did. During the summer before my sophomore year, I found out that I made the varsity soccer team, and I could not be more thrilled. That year, we won the division in soccer, and we also won the division in basketball for varsity, so it was a really good year for sports. Unfortunately, sophomore year is when I found out that my papa from Massachusetts, had Alzheimer's. I took it the hardest out of my family, but he's really positive about it and he makes a lot of jokes, which makes me feel happy and positive about the future and his condition. During the summer going into my junior year of high school, I went to Kutztown, Pennsylvania for a basketball camp, which I had already been to twice before that. I broke my finger during a game and I called my mom to tell her, and she exaggerated and told me to pack my things because she was coming to get me. Also, that year, we won the division in soccer for the second year in a row, and we won the division in basketball for the second year in a row. One of my favorite parts of high school was when I went to Disney World in Florida with my basketball team for a basketball tournament, which technically we weren't really allowed to play in because the season hadn't started yet, but those are just minor details. We went on the Tower of Terror as a team, and everyone was excited and had a really great time, except for me. I was hysterical crying because I was so scared, and there are so many pictures of that one picture, it's really embarrassing. We won that tournament, and we also won the division that year. Around the time of prom, my junior year, Connor Zero and Evan helped Tim Zero ask me to prom, and Tim got me a fish, and I had to name the fish Tim, and they wanted to be my project, so there you go. During the summer going into my senior year, I went on an NHS trip to Costa Rica, and it was one of my favorite trips I've ever taken. We played soccer on mountains with locals. We saw a giant poisonous snake. We went ATV riding in a river, like a knee deep river, and it was such a great experience, and I'm so glad I went on that trip. I was also named captain of the varsity soccer team, which I loved being, and I just loved being a part of that team this year. August and September of my senior year were really stressful months for me because the whole college application process started. And I just knew I really wanted to go to Syracuse University, but I applied to four other schools just in case I didn't get in. But on December 13th, I got the most amazing letter ever. I was accepted into the Newhouse School of Communications, which is my number one choice, and it is one of the top communications schools in the country. I am SU bound next year, and I could not be more excited about that. A few weeks after I got the fantastic news about Syracuse, I was playing in a basketball game and I hit my hand against Livia Liskowitz's back, and I actually broke my hand a little bit. So that was a weird experience for me. During winter break of my senior year, I went on an amazing catamaran trip to St. Bart's, Anguilla, and St. Martin, and my dad's job on the catamaran was to tie up the dinghy, and a few times he actually forgot to tie it up or didn't tie it up correctly, and the dinghy floated like at least a mile away, and we had to go chase it down using a different boat. A few months after Christmas break, my basketball team played in the state sectional championship against Neptune High School, and we won 38 to 35, and we haven't won a state sectional championship in 35 years, so we got to cut down the net, and it was probably the happiest day out of my entire high school career. During spring break of my senior year, I went to Cabo in Mexico with my family. It's one of our last spring breaks together because Evan and I are going off to college, so it was kind of important to us. Every day for lunch, I had a pineapple pizza with ham on it, and we went ATV riding on the beach near the ocean, and that was really cool. And we also saw a fish that my dad named Eddie Murphy for some reason, but that was a really amazing trip. This year, I went to a lot of really cool colleges just to stay with friends and check it out, and I realized that I could not be more excited to go to Syracuse and that it's definitely the school for me. I also saw Les Miserables on Broadway twice because I'm obsessed with that play, and a lot of people don't know, but I really am a huge fan of theater and Broadway shows. I'm not really sure what's going to happen next, but I can tell you that I've had an amazing childhood. I had a great time in middle school and an amazing time in high school, and whatever happens in the future, I'm sure will be amazing too.